By implementing a regressive tax such as this, it will likely in the future increase government spending and could be seen as the government kicking the proverbial bad budget can down the road and is unfair to future taxpayers. Hi again everyone, I hope you're all doing well and taking care of yourselves. So perhaps Joe Biden's worst kept secret during the election campaign was that he planned to change the tax system when they won the election. So there is a lot of speculation about how this will all play out. The common components focused on during the campaign and since have been increased taxes to high income earners, reversing some of the 2017 tax cuts and increases to the corporate tax rates. This video, however, will focus on exploring one of the potential reforms regarding capital gains that was mentioned during a Senate Finance Committee meeting just last week on the 19th of January that has received little to no attention in the media. From the outset, I personally don't think the tax is likely to be implemented. However, if it is actually implemented how it is defined in this Senate exchange, then that is a little bit scary. And I think it will have a long-term negative effect on the US economy. So to start with today, I'm going to show you an excerpt from that exchange where the tax is first mentioned and then provide some commentary afterwards. So here we go.
Headquarter a multinational company, which will make it less attractive to invest here. And I would point out that we reached record low unemployment rates and rising wages, especially for lowest income people after our tax reform. Not sure why we want to go back on that, but let me zero in on one particular idea that some of our colleagues have suggested, and I think Senator Wyden was alluding to this during his opening comments, and this is the idea that separate and apart from the Biden administration's proposal to double the taxes on capital gains, some are suggesting that we start to impose taxes on unrealized gains. An asset appreciates and we charge a tax on that, even though there's no liquidity event, there's no sale, there's no actual realized gain. We'll, I guess, have a mark to market, if that's even possible in some cases, and impose a tax on that. So my question for you, Dr. Yellen, is without getting into any particular bill, do you support the idea of taxing unrealized appreciation of assets?
Well, I do believe that capital gains should at some point be taxed. Right now, step up of basis at death provides a route by which a very large share of capital gains are never taxed at all.
That's a separate issue. That's a distinct issue. The idea of an annual tax on an unrealized appreciation of assets is what I'm asking about.
Well, what I wanted to say is that there is simply different ways of addressing the issue of how to make sure that some taxes are collected on capital gains, and this mark-to-market approach is one method, but certainly not the only method. And there may be technical challenges associated with it. So I would want to have the administration look at different approaches.
And Mr. Chairman, are we operating on a 5-minute clock?
Yes, we are, and your time just ran out, but
I see that. I look forward to the second round.
All right.
So this was an interesting moment in the US Senate the other week, which has not gained much attention and may have got lost in all the fanfare surrounding the Biden inauguration. In this clip, you just saw Senator Pat Toomey question former Federal Reserve Chair and the shoo-in candidate for the position of Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen. In this clip, Janet Yellen did not deny a possible capital gains tax on unrealized gains, as was asked by Senator Toomey. This is the focus of our discussions here today. Just for further context, as Treasury Secretary, Yellen will basically be Biden's chief advisor on economic issues. So what she says here does have potential bearing on future economic policy. To give you an idea how this tax might work, let's take a property for an example. Now, most likely this would not apply to a property you own and live in, but rather to one that you own as an investment. Had you bought the investment property for $200,000 and it was to increase in valuation by 10% after the first year, now being worth $220,000, This $20,000 increase would be subject to taxation regardless of whether you sold the property for this price or not. So you haven't actually received this $20,000 in cash. As a rule of property investing, or any investing for that matter, an asset is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. So just because a real estate agent or a bank or a government official comes and tells you your property is worth a certain amount, in our example $220,000, that does not mean that when you sell it that you will get that $220,000. Furthermore, there are so many questions that this simple definition of the tax can't answer in a way that is equitable, including but not limited to: what would happen if you go to sell the property and only get the price you paid for it back, or worse still, less? What happens to the tax you have paid on the unrealized capital gains in the past when the gain was not realized? Is it refunded, or does it just stay with the government? How often will the tax be enforced? Will it be an annual tax, so every year property has to get revalued? Will it be over a 5-year period? Will discounted tax rates be applied if you hold the property beyond what the government regards as short-term? Currently in the USA, capital gains from short-term investments attract the marginal income tax rate, while longer-term gains are taxed up to 20%, I believe. Also, will this mean that capital gains do not need to be paid when the asset is sold? Beyond this, what if we were talking about unrealized gains on more volatile assets such as the share market or cryptocurrency? In many instances, one week the values could be up 50%, whereas in the next week they could be down 50%. How can this tax be applied fairly, as investors could be severely punished tax-wise based on the timing of their purchase? Moving beyond the problem with the tax's mechanics and application, this kind of taxation can have a negative impact on personal investing behavior and lead to longer-term increases in government spending. My philosophical understanding of the tax system around investing is that it is set up to encourage individuals to be self-sufficient and rely as little as possible on government assistance in retirement. In most OECD countries, the biggest government expense that the tax system deals with is looking after older people who are retired through pensions and healthcare and other provisions. So the tax system is meant to encourage as many people to be as self-funded in retirement as possible. By having a tax that does not encourage longer-term investing for the future, more individuals are going to rely on government support in retirement. When you factor in the growing aging population that exists due to low birth rates in countries such as the USA, shouldn't there be more incentivizing for people to self-fund their retirement? Anyway, in the format that the tax was outlined in this Senate committee interaction, I do not think it will proceed. It is not really workable in an equitable way and will encourage negative investment behavior in the long term. A more plausible change to capital gains laws are changes to the tax rates they incur, or possibly to the laws around passing on assets when someone has passed away. It is no secret that the US government has a large debt and is currently running the budget at a massive deficit. Even though that debt is extremely cheap due to really low interest rates at the moment, budget repair is something that will need to be addressed in the near future, especially when interest rates start to rise again and the debt becomes more expensive. By implementing a regressive tax such as this, it will likely in the future increase government spending and could be seen as the government kicking the proverbial bad budget can down the road and is unfair to future taxpayers. So what do you guys think? Will the tax eventuate? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it will look a little bit different? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to post new content pretty much every day. I really appreciate the support my channel has received to date. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time, guys.